Hey guys, I'm here to talk to you guys today about the Heisman race. I think that we can easily right now narrow it down to 5 players that are in contention for this. Mine separates from what ESPN has right now because I don't agree with theirs. On one condition, I just don't see how you can keep Lamar Jackson out of the talk. They have him down at 6th when he's on pace to improve his numbers in both passing and rushing from the last season, where he won the Heisman on what they called one of the most explosive college football performances ever. And then here he is, not just repeating, but improving, and we're going to write him off simply because he's already won it. Well, no, that's not how it works. It's not an award you win once. In most cases it is, but it is not unprecedented. Archie Griffin won it 2 years in a row, so I think Lamar Jackson has a good chance at that. But I'm getting ahead of myself. I'm going to start, we all know I'm going to get to Lamar Jackson, so I'm going to save him for last. I'm going to start with who I think is the biggest competition to Lamar Jackson, and that will be Penn State running back Saquon Barkley. Saquon Barkley has been insane. He's been in all aspects of the Penn State offense and special teams. The only thing he hasn't done on special teams is return punts and kick field goals. He's returning kickoffs for him, and he's running the ball, he's catching the ball. He's just a full package, and I think he's the most NFL-ready running back that could potentially go out in the draft this year. So, for starters, he's at his halfway point in the season. He just played his 7th game against Michigan. I'm not including those stats. By the way, I'm only including the first 6 game stats and the half-season stats for all of these guys. All of them have played at least 1, sometimes 2 games past the 6-game point, but I'm only going to be including up to the 6th game. The rest will be included in a second half or a full season stat line. So for Saquon Barkley, he had an explosive start to the season, and he's only had 1 game over 200 yards. 2 games over 100, including the 200-yard game. But he's still managed to rack up the rushing yards. He currently has, as of game 6 for Penn State, he has 649 rushing yards, 6 rushing touchdowns, 395 receiving yards, and 2 receiving touchdowns, plus 258 kickoff return yards, and 1 kick return touchdown. That puts him at a 1,302 all-purpose yardage and 9 total touchdowns. It's insane for a running back to be at that point halfway through the season. I mean, those stats compare to running backs who won the Heisman back in the 40s. Full season stats. He has 6 games after this to compile even more stats. So I think he's going to be a real force to be reckoned with. And plus, the thing that really gives him the edge on Lamar Jackson right now is the playoff contention. That does weigh into what the Heisman race, even though we don't really want to admit it all the time, it does. Next on the list, the next person I think who has a good shot at winning the Heisman as well is a quarterback who plays for Oklahoma State, Mason Rudolph. Mason Rudolph, as of halfway through his season, 6 games, he has 2,368 passing yards and 19 passing touchdowns. He also has only thrown 4 interceptions, which is not bad at all. He has 71 rushing yards and 6 rushing touchdowns. He has a total of 2,439 yards and 25 total touchdowns. If he continues at this rate, he'll be unstoppable. If he plays the rest of his season, now he will be playing the rest of his season on against harder teams to play. So it's going to be interesting to see how he steps up to bat, so to speak. He's got a good point here, he's the only one on this list whose total yards even comes close to Lamar Jackson's. Next on the list, Baker Mayfield. You had to see this one coming. Baker Mayfield was in the running last season. I think he's going to be a finalist again this year. I don't know that he wins it, though. Here's what his first 6 game stats are. He has 1,937 passing yards with 17 passing touchdowns, only 1 interception in the first 6 games of the season. He had 101 rushing yards and 1 rushing touchdown, so that puts him at a total of 2,038 total yards and 18 total touchdowns. That's good. That's really good. The only reason I might put him above Mason Rudolph is his quality of opponents has been slightly better. He has played a few of these games against the likes of Ohio State and other big-name opponents, including Kansas State and all them. He's played some tough teams. He played one of the best defenses in the Big 12 in Texas, still put up 2 touchdowns and over 300 yards passing in that game. So he has a chance at making himself known there. The next one on the list is the running back for Stanford, Bryce Love. This guy is exciting, and it's going to be interesting to see what he does in the last half of the season here. He has yet, in the first 6 games, the least amount of rushing yards he had in a single game in the first 6 games was 152 yards rushing. And he has scored a rushing touchdown in every single game. So his total is 1,240 yards rushing in the first 6 games of the season with 9 touchdowns rushing. He has 19 receiving yards, putting his total yardage at 1,259. It's impressive to see his running here. I mean, just to run through the first 6 games, yardage total, not even touchdowns, just yardage total, 180, 160, 184, 263, 301, and then 152. By the way, the 160 and 184, those were in a blowout loss to USC and a close loss to San Diego State, in which Stanford only scored 2 touchdowns. He scored both of them. So that's the last one on the list who is not named Lamar Jackson. We all know Lamar Jackson. He won the Heisman last year. He had an explosive season where he had over 3,000 yards passing and over 2,000 yards rushing, 20 touchdowns rushing, and over 30 passing touchdowns. He was insane. His half-season stats: 1,990 passing yards with 14 touchdowns and only 4 interceptions. That is the most impressive part. His turnovers have decreased this season. So, his rushing yards, 510 yards and 7 rushing touchdowns. He has an overall total yards at the halfway point of the season, 2,500 yards, 21 total touchdowns. There's only one player on this list who has more total touchdowns than him, and it's Mason Rudolph. But he has more total yardage than Mason Rudolph. Plus, he's on fire. He has 1, 2, 3 different games this season where he has over 300 yards passing and over 100 yards rushing. Those were the first game of the season. He had 378 yards passing, 2 touchdowns, and 107 yards rushing. He had the second game, 393 yards passing, 3 passing touchdowns, and 132 yards rushing with 3 rushing touchdowns. So we have to skip down to the 7th game, so it's not in the first half of the season, but I have to go over this. 332 yards passing with 2 passing touchdowns and 180 yards rushing with 3 rushing touchdowns. He threw 1 interception in the game, and that was in a loss to Boston College. I mean, it's insane that he can perform like that. His performance in the losses, 317 yards passing with 3 passing touchdowns and an interception with 64 yards rushing against Clemson. He scored all of their points that game. The next loss against NC State, 354 yards passing with a passing touchdown and an interception, 73 yards rushing with 2 rushing touchdowns in a loss to NC State. And then we've already gone over the Boston College loss. The 3 losses, his stats have not gone down at all. His stats have maintained through the whole season. He is the one constant performer on Louisville. So, yes, the losses do tend to take a play in. I can't fault the guy for his team not being there to support him. I mean, that Boston College game, they put up 42 points. That should have been enough. It's the defense to blame for that game. It should have been enough to beat Boston College with 42 points. And the NC State game, he threw the interception that led to them locking the game away. But the defense let it get to that point. Like, he's getting blamed for everything, every loss, and it's really not his fault. Anyway, enough of my ranting. I've explained to you the stat lines here, and at the halfway point, here's how I rank the Heisman runners. From 5th all the way to 1st. So I'm going to start with 5th place. 5th place, I gotta go with Bryce Love. Bryce Love has had a spectacular season, but he's trending down. I mean, he had 180, 160, 184, 263, 301, 152, and then his 7th game is 147, so he seems to be trending down, and his opponent quality is going to get better and better as the season gets later and later, capping off the season with a game against Notre Dame. So I think he's going to slide down just a little, and he can't afford to lose momentum in this. I have him at 5th. Next, at 4th, I have Baker Mayfield. I think Baker Mayfield's stats are looking really good, but I don't think the Heisman stats yet. He could blow up in the last half of the season and become the new frontrunner, but I don't see it right now. 3rd, Mason Rudolph. I got Mason Rudolph here in 3rd place because he's so good, but he hasn't played anyone yet. Not anyone worth note. And when he did play someone with a good defense, Texas, that was just this weekend, 282 yards passing, no touchdowns, on negative 14 yards rushing, no touchdowns. So he did not contribute to the scoring at all in that game. It was still a win, but he might as well have not contributed in the game at all. So I got him at 3rd. I've raved about him. And I've raved about him, and you thought I was going to put him at number 1, but I got Lamar Jackson at number 2. I love Lamar Jackson. I think he is the most explosive and the best player in college football. But I got to put him at number 2. And it's not because I don't think he's good enough to win the Heisman. It's because number 1, Saquon Barkley, is just unreal. He's helped catapult Penn State from just this mediocrity into a national title contender. They are 7-0, and they go on the road to play Ohio State next, and if they win that, they go to 8-0 with the conference title right in their grasp, and a trip to the playoffs that they were denied last year right in their grasp. So I gotta give props to Saquon Barkley because his team is killing it, and he's the reason they're killing it. Yeah, his quarterback's performing well, but you can argue his quarterback is performing well because he's there to take the pressure off. I, at the halfway point of the season, am gonna say my vote, if I had one, would go to Saquon Barkley. So what do you guys think? Let me know what you think about the Heisman race, who you think should win it, and comment below in the comment section with your response. I can't wait to see how this plays out. If you guys like what I'm doing, don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button, and I'll be back after this one with the Week 9 predictions video.